Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Block Talk show. Today, we will be exploring the latest in tech and innovation. I am your host, Ahmed, and today we are diving into the world of blockchain and digital identity with our special guest, Patrick, marketing manager and lead of partnerships at Latintry. Uh, Patrick brings a unique perspective on marketing within the blockchain space, shaping how we understand and interact with the digital identities. We are excited to have him here to share insights and experience. So let's get started and welcome Patrick to show. Thanks for joining Patrick in our Block Talk show.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Happy to be here. Happy to be talking about identity. I think it's a space, at least when you're in it, is really exciting. But for a lot of people, you don't hear too much about identity in Web3. So I'm always happy for opportunities to spread the gospel, if you will.
Yeah, that's why like we are. It's a very hot topic, nowadays for the digital identities and the securities as well. So we will first start about your journey. Like we are really excited to know your journey, like how you have started your journey in this blockchain space, and the journey that lead you to become the marketing and the partnership lead at the Latentry.
Yeah, so my journey, I feel like started like a lot of people's journey, or maybe not necessarily a lot of people, but basically investing in at aping into random, and pardon my French, shit coins back in like 2019, 2018. And then I really started caring about the technology behind these coins that I was buying and sometimes making money, but mostly losing money in. Because for me, my background is political science and economics, and so I'm always interested in seeing how the new technologies that we have are impacting society and how they might change society, hopefully for the better. And so for me, it's blockchain, crypto, kind of these privacy technologies like zero knowledge proofs, trusted execution environments. For me, they're always a bridge to the next technology. And I think right now what's missing from kind of the crypto space in itself is that identity piece, because we're all right now identified, whether we like it or not, through our wallet addresses. And the thing that brought me to Latentry was the fact that they were working on an identity solution or reputation solution for the Web3 space as a whole. And for me, that kind of fit into what I care about in terms of having, that societal, social aspect to the technology and the financial applications of crypto.
Interesting. Like, yeah, I have also started my journey at the same time like yours, and that yeah, really that was a time of altcoins. Like people like heavily investing in some shit coins, and some of them has grown and so much, and some of them has down. So yeah, it's really interesting to know your journey and the enthusiasm about the tech and the innovations. So I would like to ask, like, can you please tell us what is Litentry and how Latentry's Identity Hub is working on the digital identity management in the Web3 space, especially in terms of user privacy and the data control. So, how they are working?
Yeah, so Latentry and the Identity Hub, which is Latentry's product, is essentially our response to having user privacy within blockchain and within the Web3 space. Because as many of us in the space know, blockchains, they're great, they're fully transparent, they're immutable, but it that doesn't mean that you want to be fully transparent in every situation that you find yourself in Web3. And every time that you connect to a decentralized application, you are sharing your entire transaction history with that particular wallet address. You're sharing all your financial assets, any NFTs, POAPs, etc. So whoever is on the other side of that gap, whether they have good intentions or bad, can see everything you've ever done. And what we wanted to do is kind of shift the balance of power in terms of of data and privacy into the user's hands. Because as we've seen in Web 2, everything is kind of in the centralized communities, centralized companies that control our Instagram profiles, our X Twitter profiles. If we one day want to get up and leave because we don't like a particular policy that one of these companies is implementing, we have to leave all of our data behind. And so what Latentry saw as an opportunity is to give people the power to control their own identity and also to create this notion of identity within the Web3 space. And the way that we do that is through identity aggregation. So that is to mean to bring your different identities together. And identity in Web3 at this point is your wallet addresses. But we find that these wallet addresses, they are very two-dimensional in that you can only see that transaction history, the financial assets that you have, the NFTs, etc. But you don't really get a sense of who this person is or what they do or what they care about. And so with the Identity Hub, not only are you able to bring together your different wallet addresses from different blockchains, because we recently launched our EVM sign-in this past summer, but you're also able to create verifiable credentials. And verifiable credentials are data containers that allow you to prove different aspects of your identity. And so you're able to, for example, connect your main EVM based wallet with your Polkadot one, with whether you're using MetaMask and others, bring them all together securely within the Identity Hub, and then be able to share verifiable credentials based on that data, but without sharing that wallet address or where the information necessarily, the direct information where it came from. And so people are able to see, for example, if I want to state that for a loan application from some DeFi protocol, that I have over 10,000 USDT in assets, but I don't want to share what those assets are, nor do I want to share what transactions that I've had, I can create a verifiable credential using the Identity Hub and then share that information at the minimal level of transparency that I need to give. So maybe for that DeFi protocol, it would be great for them to know in which assets I'm invested in. But for me, the important thing is that they know that I have at least 10,000 USDT in holdings. And so I'm able to just share that minimal piece of information as opposed to exposing my entire self. And the cool thing about that is that you're able to now start to create these interactions where it's not a simple assumption from the company side that they can just have all your data and do with it what they will, but you're able to control exactly how much data you want to share and for how long, because you can always revoke that VC that you've given them or expire it or whatever the case may be. So it makes data a lot more modular, and it really puts the user in control of that data within our philosophy of self-sovereign identity and user control.
Interesting, and the way you explain is really very very knowledgeable and very engaging. Like the explanation is really really nice. And one more thing I would like to add here, like can you tell us a bit more? Like we found like the literally use the TEE data protection process, like trusted execution enclave. So can you explain like how this technology ensures user data security and how it compares to other methods like ZK proofs or zero knowledge proofs?
Yeah, so that's a great question. It's one that we get often. TEE or TEE, as you said it, is a trusted execution environment, and this is essentially a fancy word for technologies that we're already using today. So most of us listening on this are probably listening from our smartphones, whether that's Android or an Apple based smartphone. These smartphones these days, more often than not, also contain a trusted execution environment. So what that is essentially for any phones with unlocking with your face or your finger, they have essentially a black box built into the phone that the companies that built these can't even access themselves, which is why, if you lose your, for example, in the case of Apple, if you lose your iCloud password or your phone passcode, you're not able to unlock that sensitive biometric information that's protected by the face or your finger ID because of that trusted execution environment. And so essentially what we're taking uh, from that very scalable technology, we're applying it to Web3, and we're using Intel's SGX to power our trusted execution environment setup. And we have a sidechain that essentially calculates and creates those sensitive relationships that your different identities would have. And that allows you to confidently connect your different identities through the Identity Hub, because not even us at Latintry can see what those identities are. So this is really useful for users that are maybe whales and that simply don't want to share all the assets that they have. They want to still gain benefits from having these assets or from contributing to different DAOs, to different projects, any essentially on-chain activity, you're able to connect within the Identity Hub and then share using verifiable credentials. And how this differs from ZK proofs, well, ZK proofs or zero knowledge proofs are mathematically based, whereas the trusted execution environment is more hardware based. So everything is saved locally on the user's machine. So basically, if you wipe that, then the sensitive data that you've saved in the Identity Hub also gets wiped. So it kind of keeps the point of failure reduced to your physical location, and whether, if you, for example, lose access to your phone, I mean, you'll probably have bigger problems than than just losing your Identity Hub information. But that's kind of the approach that we wanted to have, is really give the user full control and at the same time, full risk uh, management of their digital identity. And the reason why we went with trusted execution environments as opposed to zero knowledge proof is simply because at this point in time, trusted execution environments are a lot more scalable. And so if we see in the future that ZK proofs aren't as costly for users, for the average user to implement and to use in their daily lives, then we'll explore the option of moving to that technology. But for the moment, yeah, we're on the TE side.
Interesting, La, and I agree with your point. With such passcode and the blocks box, easily our identity can be exposed to anyone, and this is actually the need of the market. Like we have to understand the securities and the concern thing for securing our assets, for securing our wallet addresses to be the to be prevented us from the any fraud or any scam. So this is really a need of the market. So I would like to know like one more thing, like what's your thought on the we have seen the recent hype of the world coin. They were taking the identity of the retina of the person. So like what's your thought on that world coin retina identity grabbing part?
I think it's an interesting approach to KYC, essentially, or proof of humanity, if you will. I personally don't think it's the right approach, simply because, again, we're just falling into this Web2 trap of putting our confidence and trust in another centralized company where we don't know where they're keeping that data. We don't know how they're taking care of it. We don't know how many people have access to it. We don't know to what uses that data could have. And I think that's very much the case of our lives in Web 2, right? We upload a ton of personal information, and we just have to trust that the company on the other end has good intentions and is going to safeguard it as they should. But as we've seen time and time again, anytime that there's a company holding sensitive information, very soon after there's a data leak of some kind or an abuse of that data privacy. And so for me, I'd rather not have a company hold my biometric data at that level. And that's part of also the reason why I haven't done any DNA tests, because again, you don't know what these people are using your data and your information for.
Got it. So, another question for the Identity Hub, like, is the Identity Hub the only way to access Latintry protocol features currently? And are there any plans to introduce more direct interaction methods like SDK or maybe some other things in the future?
Yeah, so we are building an SDK for projects enable them to create profiles on the Identity Hub, and essentially what that does for a project is it allows them to create their own score logic within the Identity Hub based on verifiable credentials. So what this means is essentially it allows projects now to understand who is in their community, who are their most valuable users, without necessarily getting those users to share their entire wallet address and needing to see all their financial information, all their on-chain activity and transactions. For users, what that allows them to do is still be able to gain benefits from projects and do that through the sharing of these verifiable credentials, gaining the points as per the score logic of a particular project, and gaining benefits, things like increased APY on staking, or early access to different events or free tickets to different events, things like this. It really, the sky's the limit in terms of how projects can design their profiles within the Identity Hub. And at the moment, it is the only way to interact with the Latentry protocol directly. But I mean, you're also free to go on Binance, and you can grab the coin on there if you want to hold it. We also have staking enabled within the Latentry blockchain. Um, so there are kind of if you're more focused on the tokenomics and the token financial side of it, you can just interact with that and never have to see the Identity Hub at all. Alternatively, if you care more about the use case and the technology, then you don't have to buy the token, and you can just focus on using the Identity Hub for the purposes that are intended. And basically, our goal in the near to medium term is to onboard more projects so that they have profiles on there, so that their users can use the Identity Hub, start to gain these benefits of having a reputation, a pseudonymous identity in Web3, so that we start to create this kind of infrastructure layer of identity, so that instead of, for example, needing to put up 80-90% collateral when you're taking a loan in a DeFi protocol, you're able to take a loan at a better maybe interest rate or a better ratio, simply because you've proven to be someone that's trustworthy through the sharing of those verifiable credentials of your on-chain activity.
All right, all right. So we are seeing currently like all the SGX nodes are under liquidity control. So how do you plan to achieve decentralization of these nodes, and what are the implementation for network security and the user trust? I'm asking about like the SGX nodes.
Yeah, so yeah, like you said, all the SGX nodes are currently under Latentry's control, and essentially, we plan on decentralizing that in the future once the product is fully developed, in terms of being able to onboard partners seamlessly and easily. Because right now it is very much a hands-on process within the company. I expect, if everything, the product gets developed as according to plan, and that we have all the features that we want to have to launch the product as a fully mature um, feature in the Web3 space, then the decentralization would come after that. But for the moment, it's right now it's a little bit too early to be talking about the full decentralization of those nodes. But it is something that we are thinking about and that we have in our roadmap.
All right, yeah. Like we have got so much info and the details about the protocol, and it's really, really good to know from you. So now, I have some questions related to marketing and your experience, like how the literacy is going into the marketing.
Mhm.
So I would just like to know, like, what unique marketing strategies has Litentry employed to stand out in his highly competitive Web3 and the blockchain space. So what exactly you guys are doing to become success in this blockchain in the competitive Web3 market?
Yeah, so that's a really great question, especially because we're hopefully coming out of a very long, very arduous crypto winter. But I think the thing that we are doing perhaps differently, or maybe there are some companies out there doing it as well, is just being clear and honest about the progress of the company. We are very communicative with the community, because we think that one of the reasons why that we've been able to survive this crypto winter so well is simply because we weren't getting caught up in the hype of the the bull run, because I think that's what gets a lot of people. And you even as a company, you get this FOMO or this fear of missing out, and you need to say that you're doing this thing, and that this other thing's happening, you could make a ton of money, and et cetera and et cetera. But what I found was important during this time was really to be clear in terms of the goals that we had and what was achievable and what could be achievable in the medium to long term. And I think we've been rewarded from that in terms of having consistent growth across our socials. When we do launch, for example, we had our alpha launch of our product this past summer, and we had a tremendous response from the community because they've been aware of the technologies that we're working with. They've been aware of the potential impact that these technologies could have within the Web3 space. And I think that really showed in the genuine excitement behind the launch of our product in the user context, at least.
All right. So, like as you know, like the education is like very necessary, and we are also like as a Blockopedia, we continuously pushing the articles and the some thoughtful stories to educate our community to be updated in the market. So, I would like to know like how does Litentry identify and engage with its targeted audience, especially considering the technical complexity of the blockchain technology. How you guys doing in that particular area?
Yeah, so we employ a couple of methods. We of course have AMAs like this one to again spread the word about Latentry, but more importantly about identity and why it is so important in the Web3 space. But also we have a essentially a content writing team that puts out articles to explain what these different technologies are, how they can be used, what are potential use cases for them, and in ways that people will understand. Because I think one of the big issues that we do, or one of the big issues that we have as an industry, is that we get way too deep into the details, and that acts kind of as a gatekeeping mechanism for people trying to get into the space or simply trying to understand what people are so excited about or what is going on. And so for us, it's really important to communicate the technology, even though it might be something that most people will not come across in their day to day lives, because it's, I like to think of it as the equivalent of the protocol that's behind emails, right? Most of us, I would argue, probably use emails at least once a day, or that we receive at least one email a day. But we don't ask ourselves, oh, what is the protocol behind the email that let me receive this email or let me send that email? We just care that it works. And so that's kind of the approach that we take to the education piece is that, we do have the more technical documentation. We do have the more specific, and you get into the nitty gritty of how these things are working. But just as important, if not more so, in order to achieve greater adoption of the crypto space in general, is that we put out articles like our series on our website, latintry.com. What the heck is a blockchain? And it just breaks it down into simple terms, into terms that people can understand, with examples that most people have had in their everyday lives. And even though those use cases aren't there yet, things like using verifiable credentials as opposed to our government IDs, um, people understand why it might be useful in the future. And I think that's the big key, is getting people to understand why it might be useful and moving away from this idea or this narrative that crypto is full of scams, and it doesn't have any real world applications. And I think one of the cool things, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think India was trying um, a digitized version of an ID. I don't remember. I think it happened a couple of months ago or a year ago or something like this. But it was also interesting because you see that governments are also taking part in these experimentations with self-sovereign identity and digital IDs and things like that. And I think it's very important that us, especially in the identity space, educate people as to why it's important that the user is the one and on the alpha and the omega of their data, and not a government or a third party company that controls it and tells us how we can use it. They can generate it, but at the end of the day, it should be us as the user, as the consumer, as the citizen that has control as to how this data is shared and who it is shared with.
I believe like it's a very great explanation, and it's a very in terms of learning, it's really insightful the way you have mentioned. And like, yeah, government is really doing a good job for digitalizing our identities. But yeah, we have to ensure our protect our identity. So that's why like we are always talk about the decentralized identity. And India, like I'm also from India, and the companies who are coming for the decentralized identity is eventually growing, and the government is also taking a very good part for fulfilling it to desired needs. So I believe like I have asked enough question, and it's like very interesting session with you. So I would like to end this session. So just for and ending, like I would like to, so like what message do you want to convey to our audience? Like lots of the people, like more than 400 to 500 people are listening us live. So what message do you want to convey to our audience, to the communities who are working in this decentralized identity and want to secure their identities? And what message do you want to convey in terms of blockchain space and where we are moving towards?
Yeah, I think the big message is demand more from the crypto projects that you engage with, because I think there's still this idea that we can get away with almost anything in the crypto space. But I think as we start to mature as an industry, we also need to reckon with the the complexity of the things that we're building, and to want to build for the majority rather than for the limited minority that is, that they're those crypto degens that are still aping into, shit coins and making sometimes a ton of money or losing a ton of money. And so I think if we really want crypto to go mainstream, and we want, everyone, my mother and everyone's dog, to be using some type of crypto technology, I think we need to make that step into making it more accessible, lowering the barriers of entry for someone to get into the crypto space, because that's the only way that we are able to control the narrative when it comes to crypto, but more importantly, at the societal level, when inevitably we're going to have digital identities and digital currencies. And we want to make sure that it's the people who care about decentralization, that care about user control and user rights that are in those rooms when those decisions are being made. Because the last thing that we want is to create a a crypto world or a digitalized world in which we're just replicating the same issues and problems that we've seen in Web 2.
All right, all right. Like, yeah, this is actually the things and need of the market, and we have to understand this thing for making it moving into the another space. So, Patrick, like it's really a very nice and fascinating this discussion with you, and I really enjoyed a lot. I hope you also do. Thanks for joining us, and I believe I will have you again in our Block Talk show. So, thank you so much for joining us, and thanks for your time.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I don't know if there's time maybe for one or two questions from the audience. I don't know if someone has maybe something that they want to add. I don't know if you do that on your show. It's your show.
Yeah, like we are just asking questions. Like this time, we didn't take any questions from the audience, but yeah, next time we'll do definitely to take some questions from the audience also.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you so much for having me, and I guess I'll see everyone next time.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you so much. Have a nice day. Bye bye.